welcome back to the S2Me Safety and Cybersecurity at Home 101 community webinar series. Today we're going to be talking through part 4, the continuing of the S2Me assessment. For those of you that have been keeping up with us all along, this will be very familiar to you. If any of you are new to this web series, try to keep up as best as you can, and then I encourage you to go back and check out the videos that we've posted to YouTube. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get us rolling. So welcome back. We're just going to recap parts 1, 2, and 3. So in part 1, we covered safety and cybersecurity issues at home. The more life is complex and the more complexity you have in your technology, the harder it makes safety and cybersecurity. It increases your risk. You know, there are some truths, and one of those truths is that complexity is the enemy of safety and cybersecurity. The simpler something is, the easier it is to secure. And the reason this is important is because if we don't do a good job at cybersecurity and safety, then we potentially put ourselves, our loved ones, and our children at risk to be victims of cybercrime, to be exposed to ugly things on the internet, and potentially even have physical issues or mental health issues. So the solution there is around education and simplification. And that's why we've created the S2Me, and we went through that introduction. In part 2, we started to begin to take you through the assessment. We walked you through logging in, and we talked about household desktop and laptop use. We talked about safe practices for internet usage. And we talked about choosing and protecting your authentication. Again, if any of this is unfamiliar to you, please do go check out the YouTube videos. Evan will post in the chat session a link to our YouTube channel so you can find that. In part 3, we continued through the S2Me assessment and we focused on not these things listed. So I apologize for that. In a hurry to put these slides together, sometimes we make some copy-paste errors. But we talked about things like secure gateway, safe Wi-Fi use, and securing your home network. One truth I want to make sure that we hit on, and we've talked about this every time, and we'll talk about it every time, is that no one is more responsible for your safety and cybersecurity than you. Not your internet provider, not your employer, not your neighbor, right? It's you. We're not going to sell you anything. That's not what we're here to do. So with that, we're going to go and do the introduction of part 4. Again, all sessions are recorded and live streamed both to Facebook and YouTube. If you miss a session, 2 or 10, feel free to email us at info@securitystudio.com and we'll get you a copy. As well, we have a lot of content that we've created on the Security Studio website that can help you get better at your cybersecurity. And we do have those YouTube videos, and we will continue to produce content going forward. So this is part 4. What we're going to talk about today is actually some topics that I'm really passionate about, and that's backing up your data. And we'll dive into that a little deeper, but it's a really important thing to do. We're also going to talk about the Internet of Things, or as I like to refer to it, the Internet of Terror. Those are those smart devices in your home, and we'll dive into that deeper. And then physical security. And physical security is sometimes something that we don't think about as being part of cybersecurity, but it is actually a very important part of cybersecurity. We kind of have a saying in the industry, why go through your firewall if I can just walk in and steal the server? So you guys that have been along with us for this journey, you've been doing great. Keep it up. We're going to pick up where we left off. So with that, go ahead and go to https://s2me.io. We're going to get you logged back in. And we do apologize for the repetition, but not all of us are necessarily in the same place on our journey here. So once you get that website brought up, you'll see that there's a sign in and a sign up. Again, if you're new, go ahead and sign up. But for the majority of you, this is probably picking up from yesterday. So go ahead and sign in. I'll give you guys a second to do that. All right, so getting logged back in, what you're going to do is type in your email address and the password that you set up previously. Hopefully, when you set up your account, you also set up multi-factor. If you did forget your password, click the forget password link and follow the prompts. and then click in sign in when you finish typing. Again, hope you did two-factor. Again, strongly recommended. I encourage it. While it seems inconvenient, I can tell you many stories at a later date about how two-factor has prevented fraud and made me aware of security issues as they were happening, allowing me to do the right thing to protect my family. So if you do have that two-factor set up, you should get a code sent to your cell phone. Go ahead and punch that authentication code in and then click submit. Pretty straightforward. Hopefully all of you have gotten logged in now, and if everything went according to plan, this is what you should see on the screen in front of you. So your dashboard portal page should look like this, and you should see that topic 1 has been completed. Right now we're at about 60% complete with the assessment, so that's great. We're going to get through the remainder of the assessment here today, which is going to be, for me, very exciting. And then you should see that all the topics that we've previously covered are complete with a done and check mark. But if you do want to go back and review or change any of your answers, simply click on See Answers, and that will take you back to that part of the assessment where you can then make your changes. So today we're going to dive into backing up data. Backing up data. There's 3 topics we're going to cover, and the first is that backing up of the data. So go ahead and click Complete Topic 7 to get started. So, the question is do you back up your important data? If you answer no, then there's no further questions about the topic and your score will be 300. A lot of us are not as good about backing up data as we should be. And I'll talk a little bit more about the importance of that. But if you answer yes, then we're going to ask you those additional questions. And obviously, the purpose here is that we're going to choose yes for our purposes so that we can move through. But, when I ask a lot of people, are you backing up your data? A lot of people don't know. And if folks do know that they've backed up their data, they're maybe not doing it regularly, or they're only backing up some of their data. And so if you don't know if you're backing up your data or not, just go ahead and choose yes. We're going to be in version 2, and we can talk more about that tomorrow, but as we release version 2, we've really kind of clarified a lot of the questions and added some important details. So stick with us. Just as you're trying to improve your cybersecurity, we're trying to improve the tools that we use to help you learn about this and assess yourself and protect yourself. So backing up data, I'm going to say this before I get into the questions. It is the #1 thing that you can do to protect yourself against ransomware. It's also the #1 thing you can do to protect yourself against hardware failure. If you've owned a computer long enough, you've probably experienced a hard drive failure. And I know myself, in a former life, I was a professional photographer, and so I got into the habit of backing up my photos in multiple locations. Because if anything ever happened to those photos, I could potentially be sued by the client, or I could have other issues. So it's really important to do that. The other thing I'm going to stress is, in addition to photos, there's many things we want to back up, but most of us these days aren't using film cameras any longer. We're using digital cameras. And a lot of times we don't think about backing up that data, whether it's on our laptop or on our phone. We don't necessarily think about backing it up. And unfortunately, things fail and things break, and it would be heart-wrenching to lose all those wonderful family photos that you've taken on your phone simply because you didn't take a couple of minutes to do a backup. So hopefully I've driven home the importance of backing up data and why it's just so important to do so. So diving into the questions, I check my backups at least quarterly to make sure the backup process works and all of my data is backed up correctly. So what we're really asking you here is, are you checking that those backups are actually good? You can make backups that are not usable. We call them corrupted. It's an unfortunate thing, but it does happen. And so it's really important to check those backups to make sure that you can actually restore them and recover the data that you've backed up. And the best practice for that is to check in on it quarterly. So as we move to question 7.3, I've confirmed that my backup software is configured to perform backups regularly and automatically. And automatically is something I love in life, right? I have a lot of things to remember and a lot of things to keep track of. And I don't want to have to always go, oh, crap, it's been a couple days since I've backed up my data, or it's something on a to-do list that I'm not going to get to. So whenever possible, I do try to do automatic backups. If you are an iPhone user, you've got the iCloud that you can back up to pretty easily. If you are an Android user, there's a variety of different solutions available. Google Drive is a place where you can back things up to. And then obviously there's a whole slew of products in the marketplace that will help you with backing up data. Question 7.4 is that I have verified that my backup can be restored successfully. So a good habit to have is every so often really do actually restore that backup. Make sure that everything you expect to be there is there and that backup actually works. Question 7.5, my backup data is stored in a location that is physically separate from and sufficiently distanced miles away from my systems. So I have a few friends of mine, and what we do is we store each other's data. So for example, I have two of my friends' data here at my home that I keep here miles and miles away from where they live. They, in their home, have copies of my data. And the reason that this is done is in the event of an unfortunate catastrophe in the home, a fire, a tornado, some other kind of natural disaster, that data isn't lost. It's as easy and inexpensive as throwing it on a thumb drive. So that's something that I definitely encourage you to do. If you don't want to do the manual method where you take it to a friend's house, use a cloud provider. That's going to be sufficient in distance away from your house, unless for some strange reason you live directly next to an Amazon or Azure data center, and I don't think most of us do. Question 7.6 is that my backup data is encrypted during transfer and in storage. This is an important point. While I'm comfortable with my friends storing my data at their homes, I'm not necessarily comfortable with them having access to my data. And so I encrypt that data so that if my friend decides to be curious or think he's a prankster, he's not able to get in and manipulate that data. And this is also true when you're using a cloud backup service. You really do want to take that additional step to encrypt it prior to uploading it to that cloud provider and leaving it in an encrypted state while it is stored with that cloud provider or whatever backup solution you may choose to use. So that's really it for the topic. It's a short one, but there's a lot to it. And hopefully I unpacked a fair amount of it for you guys so that you're comfortable with the idea and the importance of backing up data and why that really matters. The last reason I'll give you why it's such an important topic is speed to recovery. So if I did lose some information, and for example, my work computer automatically backs up. If I needed to quickly recover, because all that data has been backed up, I simply get a new clean laptop and I'm back to business. Well, the same is true in my personal life with my personal computers. I've backed up the precious data, the important stuff, the applications, and when I need to do a restoration, and I actually just went through this a few weeks ago, I got a new device because I was having some issues. And I was able to be up and running within, about 20 minutes instead of the multiple hours it would have took me to restore everything and reinstall everything. So everybody ready to move on? I hope so. Here we go. There are several ways to find the next topic, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Scroll down and you will see Internet of Things, or as I affectionately call it, the Internet of Terror. And the reason that I call it that isn't just to be cute and funny, but it's because IoT a lot of times lacks the necessary security controls that we would want to see it have. And so by introducing these less secure devices to my environment, I'm increasing my risk. And being a security professional, risk of a certain level can be scary, right? That's why I call it the Internet of Terror. So the question here is, do you use any IoT devices? A Google Home, an Alexa, smart appliances, Nest cameras, smart thermostats, smart TVs, smart speakers? If you say no, then there's no further questions. If you do answer yes, we have additional questions. The reality is the majority of us today have some kind of IoT in our home, whether we chose to have it, whether we're actively using it. I recently purchased a new TV and it came with Alexa installed. I didn't want Alexa installed on the TV, but I didn't have a choice. And so I do want to break down a little bit more of what are the Internet of Things, just in case you're unfamiliar. So Internet of Things simply means any device that connects to the internet in order to provide some form, function, or feature. This could be, again, all kinds of things from thermostats to baby monitors to thermometers. As a matter of fact, as part of the COVID response, companies that produce smart Wi-Fi connected oral thermometers are sending that data to the CDC for analysis. It could be a smart stove. There are multiple smart stoves out there now. Most new appliances come with some kind of Wi-Fi or smart feature, some kind of Internet of Thing feature. And it's not just in our home. Actually, Mary had a great point in the chat here. A lot of medical devices these days are IoT. We have pacemakers that are wirelessly updated and controlled. There are, one of my relatives is diabetic and has a device for injecting the insulin that's then connected to their smartphone, and it does real-time monitoring of their blood sugar levels and will automatically give them the necessary insulin should they be in need of it. And all of that's routing through their wireless network at home. So when I'm stressing the need to secure this stuff, it's because it goes beyond somebody seeing what you're watching on TV. It potentially could impact your physical health and well-being. Maybe you guys saw a news story a few weeks back, well, I suppose a little bit longer now, back towards Christmas time, where a poor family had their smart camera at home hijacked by a bad guy who then used that camera to look into their daughter's bedroom and start to speak to that daughter because the camera had a microphone and speaker on it. That's very terrifying stuff, back to Internet of Terror, right? That's really scary stuff. And the reason the family had that happen is because they weren't aware of the risks that came with that smart device. They didn't understand that someone from the outside world could connect into their home and connect to those devices. And part of the reason that that particular camera was so easy to compromise is because the security on it was very poor. It was very limited and very poor. The last thing I'll say about, smart devices, I went to buy a washing machine earlier this year, and I had to go to extraordinary lengths to find one that was not smart. There was about 3 models left on the entire internet that I could buy that didn't come with a Wi-Fi built into it. So know that, if you don't have IoT in your home today, the chances that you will are going up exponentially as every month goes by, as manufacturers continue to integrate smart things into their products and offering. So again, remember, they're everywhere in our homes. The average household in the United States has 2.54 people. That 0.54 is generally the short children, so we only count them as half people. The average home is using more than 20 IoT devices, and 66% of homes have multiple IoT devices. Myself, I work very, very hard to limit the amount of smart devices in my home, but back to what I said before, I have a television that I couldn't opt out of having it be smart. So I've taken additional steps and measures to make sure it can't connect to the internet. But if you're not sure how to do that stuff, by default, those smart features may be turned on. So please do answer all these questions to the best of your ability. There are no right or wrong answers, just the truth. And we're going to discuss the importance of each of these questions. So question 8.2 says, I have changed the default passwords on all IoT devices that permit any type of log in. The reason this is really important to do is because a simple Google search will show me what the default password is for any of these devices. We would like to think that the computer criminals, or black hat hackers, the bad guys, if you will, we'd like to think that they're super, super smart and super skilled. But the reality is, a lot of times they're not. They simply go to a manufacturer's website, open up the manual, and then try to see how many places that default password is still in place. And they're highly successful because most of us aren't going in and making that change. We're not going in and resetting those passwords. I would say this is true for all devices, not just IoT, but definitely with IoT, you want to make sure if you can log in, if it does have a password, not all of them do, but if you can log in, that you change that password. And to that point, question 8.3 is that all device logins are protected by long and complex passwords. So long is strong. The longer the password is, the better. A great password for protecting your IoT device is SecurityStudio told me I need to protect my IoT device, #truth. Okay, that's a really secure password.
Don't use that one now because he just said it.
Yeah, don't actually use that, but that's an example of what a secured password could be. 8.4 is that all IoT devices are on a separate network from other types of devices. Most of us these days, if you have a home router that you've purchased within the last 5 years, has the ability to do either a guest network or what we call a virtual local area network, or VLAN. And this allows you to create different segments, different separations of the network so that you can isolate those devices to their own. Generally speaking, I try to keep any IoT device completely separate from my personal home computers, from my work computers and those networks. If you are comfortable setting up a VLAN, it's not very hard to do. A simple Google search for your router manufacturer and how to set up VLAN will generally give you good instructions. But if you're not comfortable with that, setting up a guest network in a lot of cases is simply a checkbox. You're going to your router and there'll be a little thing that says guest network, activate, you click the checkbox and then click apply. So you want to try to do that if you can. Question 8.5. All IoT devices are supported by the manufacturer where security updates and patches are provided and applied automatically. This again is one of the bigger challenges with IoT. Manufacturers are improving and they are getting better with thinking about security for their devices and including ways to keep those devices up to date. But if you have some older IoT, that feature may not be available. So when selecting an IoT device, if you do choose to have one in your home, it's strongly advisable to look at that device and to see if the manufacturer does provide security updates for it. If they don't provide security updates, you may want to consider moving on to a device that does. The great thing is there are many choices available in the marketplace. There are multiple types of smart speakers. There are multiple options when it comes to appliances, thermostats, televisions, and other devices that might be smart in our home. So that's it. We're done with that topic. I think you guys are doing super awesome. Hopefully you think the same. So we're going to move into the last topic. And the last topic is physical security. Probably the most overlooked and underappreciated security control that we have. So physical security, the question here is, do you store sensitive information in your home or in your home office, or do you have a home office? If you say no, there are no further questions and the score is 850. But the reality is, most of us are going to say yes to this, especially today. As we're all working and schooling from home, we have sensitive information. And honestly, I don't know of any human who doesn't have sensitive information at home because they have bank statements, bills, social security cards, hospital bills, work information on their children. If you don't, fantastic. Reach out to us. Let us know how that stone, chisel, and hammer is working out for you. But if you don't have if you're not doing it in Sanskrit with an old hammer, chisel, on a stone, you probably do have some of this stuff around your house. So we're gonna ask some more detailed questions around this. Question 9.2, I keep up to date with the crime rate in my area via the FBI or local law enforcement agency. You know, it's really uncommon for people to do this. As a matter of fact, I myself had not even checked my own statistics for my neighborhood until I got the slide deck from Evan earlier today, and I went, oh, I should probably look into that. And so for question 9.2, you can check out Area Vibes. Area Vibes is a website that's going to allow you to see some general statistics about the crime rate in your area. And it, you know, was fascinating to me to see what, you know, was happening in my community. So you type your address in and you do a search, and then this next window will pop up, and it gives you a box there that says see details. So you click on that, and that will then take you to this view, and then you will click on the crime tab. Now, I do want to point out one interesting thing in this, and that's that any city in the state of Minnesota gets an F for weather. I found that humorous and entertaining, right? It's true. Like, no matter how good we think our state is, the weather leaves a lot to be desired, especially with getting snow this morning. So click on the crime tab, and when you do that, you'll actually start to see some statistics about your area. You know, what kind of murder are you looking at in your area? Rape, robbery, assault, violent crime, so on and so forth. Some cities do have more data than others, and if that's true, there'll be an additional See Details tab for you to click on. When I looked up my city, Bloomington, Minnesota, we did not have additional information. Clearly our law enforcement isn't sharing much, but I was surprised to find out that we did have a little bit more violent crime than I thought. Another great place to find this information is neighborhoodscout.com, Family Watchdog US, crimereports.com, spotcrime.com, and I saw Mary had put a link in the chat to another source. So, you know, feel free to check that out as well. So moving back to the questions, question 9.6, do you have a home security alarm system that is armed when you're not home? You know, some of us do have those alarm systems, some of us don't, but if you do, are you arming it when you're not home? I'm shocked sometimes to see how many people have things like surveillance cameras and alarm systems, but they're not actually using them. They're forgetting to set the alarm, you know, when they leave the home, or maybe before they go to bed, or they, you know, have teenagers in the house that aren't setting it, you know, things like that. So it's important that if you do have that you actually, you know, set it and use it appropriately. Question 9.7, I store sensitive paper records in a locked cabinet or another secured location. So some of us have fire safes or fireproof filing cabinets, or just locking filing cabinets that we keep some of our sensitive stuff in, like our passport, social security card, birth certificate, some of those documents that would be really hard to replace in the event of theft, but also documents that could cause us additional harm should they be stolen, harm such as identity theft and fraud. So that's a really good practice and habit to have. Question 9.8, camera surveillance is used in and around my home or home office. Maybe you have a Ring doorbell. You know, that would be, you would say true to this question if you have a Ring doorbell. Or if you have any kind of camera surveillance in or around the home. Cameras can be good deterrents. I would definitely advise you to be very cautious about where you place cameras inside your home. I would definitely encourage you not to place any cameras in your bedrooms or in your bathrooms or other private areas in your house, just because if it is connected to the internet, there is unfortunately a chance it could be accessed by somebody that you don't want accessing it. Question 9.9 is I have operational smoke detectors and I test them at least annually. I have a friend who has smoke detectors and they have no batteries because the beeping noise was too annoying. So if you're one of those folks, you might want to take time to think about possibly replacing the batteries. And it's always just a good habit, especially if you have children or elderly in the home, you know, check those things every 90 days. The fire department has great guidance on that if you're unfamiliar with how to test a smoke detector or how to replace the batteries. or if you potentially have a smoke detector that is hardwired, you can learn more about that with your local fire department. So this is the last question for part 4, and it's 9.10, and it's everyone in my household knows and understands what to do in an emergency situation: fire, home invasion, other catastrophic issues. I actually just saw a video earlier today of someone charging a lithium-ion battery for a go-kart that then exploded in their living room. It was really scary. And so it's important that you know what those plans are, that you've practiced those plans, especially, again, if you have children or elderly at home. This is really important. In my house, my family knows we have a rally point. So if at any point due to fire or other crisis that we need to evacuate the home, we have a safe meeting place already pre-designated that we would then meet up at. And again, your local fire department and police department have lots of great resources on how to build these plans and how to conduct the training. Because the reality is if you have a plan, that's great, but if you don't practice it, it's going to be really hard to remember it when you need it in a crisis. And there you go. You are 90% done with the S2Me assessment. Congratulations. We are so close to the finish line. We did take some time getting through these topics. On average, it takes about 15 to 20 minutes to get through the entire assessment beginning to end, but we wanted to take time to explain things and really talk about the importance of some of these questions, hopefully giving you some new information you didn't already have. And that is it for part 4. So what comes next? Well, tomorrow we're going to finish the S2Me assessment. We're going to talk about the last topic, which is breach and incident response. And this is for personal data breach and incident response. We're going to review your S2Me results and talk about how you can use them to improve. We're also going to review what's coming in version 2 of the S2Me. And I'm going to save that for later, but know that I am very excited, and Evan is very excited about what comes in version 2. It's going to be really cool. So as always, if you have any questions, contact us at info@securitystudio.com, and you can follow us on Twitter @StudioSecurity. So the opposite. The email is securitystudio.com, and the Twitter handle is @StudioSecurity. This video will be posted to the Security Studio YouTube channel so that you guys can rewatch it if you need to, and we hope to see you again tomorrow. Again, we're super excited for version 2. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. Thanks for joining us, everyone.